Hello, and welcome to Cyber Risk Management in Practice. In this video, we're stepping into the final stage of the core cyber risk cycle, risk monitoring. This isn't about going back to square one. It's about making sure the work you've already done continues to matter, because risk doesn't stand still. Systems evolve, business priorities shift, vendors change, and new threats emerge, sometimes quietly, sometimes all at once. That's why monitoring isn't an afterthought. It's what keeps your program aligned with reality. At this stage, the focus is on watching for changes, both internal and external, that could affect your organization's risk posture or decision making. That includes monitoring how effective your controls actually are in real world conditions, tracking when changes in architecture or operations introduce new risks, staying aware of shifting regulations or evolving threat tactics, and making sure that accepted risks are still acceptable. Monitoring isn't just about scanning for alerts or reacting to incidents. It's about building a feedback loop, a system that helps you adjust your strategy based on what's actually happening, not what was true 6 months ago. And it's not just a technical function. Monitoring should support the entire risk program. It should help leadership understand trends, support prioritization, and guide investment. It's a core part of how cyber risk management grows into something sustainable. And to make it work, you need clarity around roles. That's where the three lines of defense model comes in. In this model, the first line, business and operations, owns and manages risk day to day. The second line, risk and compliance, guides, supports, and challenges that work. And the third line, internal audit, provides independent assurance that everything is functioning as it should. When these lines are clear and collaborative, monitoring becomes more than oversight. It becomes part of how the organization learns, adapts, and improves over time. Risk monitoring only works if you know what to look for. That's where metrics come in, specifically key risk indicators and key performance indicators. Together, they help you answer two critical questions. Where is risk increasing or decreasing? And how well are we executing the controls and strategies we've chosen? But not all metrics are created equal. Chris give you early warning signs that risk is rising before an incident happens. They help you monitor conditions, spot patterns, and focus your attention where it's needed most. KPIs, on the other hand, tell you how well you're delivering on your objectives. They track performance of systems, controls, and teams against goals you've defined. In practice, both are essential, but only if they're clear, relevant, and actually used. That's why, in the book, we emphasize quality over quantity. Too many metrics can vary the signal and noise, and if a metric isn't tied to a decision, it's probably not worth collecting. You can use the SMART approach to pressure test your indicators. Are they specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time bound? Another important distinction is between backward looking and forward looking metrics. Backward looking metrics measure what's already happened, like how many incidents occurred or how quickly vulnerabilities were patched. Forward looking metrics are about what could happen, like the number of systems missing critical controls or the rate of exceptions granted. The balance between those two tells you not just where you've been, but where you might be heading. And as you explain in the chapter, more data isn't always better. There's a moment where having too much data, without the structure to interpret it, actually gets in the way. It can make people more confident, but not more accurate. What matters is an insight, not volume. Once you've defined the right indicators, the next step is building a metrics program that actually delivers value. And that means thinking beyond a single dashboard. A good metrics program includes different types of indicators, each serving a specific purpose. You can start with baseline metrics. These help you understand where you are right now. They answer questions like, how many systems lack critical updates? What's the average time to respond to incidents? Which business units have the most accepted risk? Then you can layer in advanced indicators, metrics that show movement, like how fast are risks being resolved? How often are exceptions being granted, and for how long? What's the average time to deploy a new control after a decision is made? And finally, You can track strategic indicators, metrics that tie directly to business priorities and long-term resilience. These might focus on things like user behavior, vendor dependencies, or alignment between cyber investment and operational risk exposure. But metrics aren't just about what you collect, they're about how you interpret them. That's where life cycle views come in. In the book, you walk through models like survival rate, how long risks stay open, burn down rate, how quickly risks are being closed, arrival rate, how fast new risks are entering the system, and life tables, which help track the trajectory of risk over time. These views add depth. They show whether the organization is treading water or actually improving its posture. But as we point out, metrics have to be used carefully. There's a concept called Goodhart's Law. When a measure becomes a target, it stops being a good measure. In other words, if a team is pressured to hit a specific number, say reducing open risks by a certain percentage, they might game the metric, close risks prematurely, reframe how things are scored, shift focus away from what matters. That's why it's critical to balance metrics with context. Use them to spark questions and drive action. And finally, communication matters. Metrics should be presented in a way that supports decision making, especially at the leadership level. Visuals, summaries, trends, and thresholds work better than spreadsheets full of raw numbers. Make it easy to spot what needs attention and what's improving. At this point, we've walked through how to monitor risks, use meaningful metrics, and track the effectiveness of your treatment strategies. But what happens next? This is where the program becomes a cycle. You're not just closing out risk assessments, you're feeding insight back into the process, adjusting your approach, refining your priorities, and staying aligned with the environment as it changes. In the book, we call this the cyber risk vortex. It's a model that shows how the 5 steps context, assessment, treatment, implementation, and monitoring don't just repeat, they deepen over time. Each cycle pulls in better data, each iteration improves clarity, and each decision builds credibility, making the next one easier. This is how you evolve from a reactive security posture to a dynamic, adaptable cyber risk capability. It's also where we start to move from basic risk management into cyber resilience. Because resilience isn't just about avoiding incidents, it's about absorbing disruption, learning from it, and bouncing back stronger. It means building a program that can flex with business priorities, one that can respond to new threats without starting over, one that's trusted by leadership, not just for compliance, but for strategy. And here's the key. None of this happens all at once. Resilience is built step by step through consistent action, continuous feedback, and a commitment to learning. You're not aiming for perfection. You're aiming for progress that lasts. If this approach resonates with you, there's a lot more discussed in the book. Find your copy and embark on this journey with me, improving your cyber risk management program step by step with a practical approach.